This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he will table in Parliament the non-disclosure agreement between Petrojam's former Human Resource and Administration Manager, Yolande Ramharak, and the state-owned oil refinery in response to concerns about how the government has been addressing the issue. At the same time, Holness said he has asked the Attorney General to review confidentiality clauses in the public sector to ensure that there is no infringement on the public's right to know.
What I would agree with, and it is the position of this side, that there should not be this type of non-disclosure agreement.
Can I ask you if you could
just let me finish the point. The non-disclosure agreement, and I sympathize with what was said earlier, that in future we should review this very carefully. Now, just to be clear, there are other agreements, other termination agreements, with which there are non-disclosure agreements. It is not unusual in the public sector for that to happen. But I think that what has been raised here is that we should seriously examine from a policy perspective whether or not we should allow non-disclosure agreements.
The government has been receiving heavy criticism after it emerged last week that Ramharak, who received an unfavorable review by the Auditor General, received a $9.2 million payout in a non-disclosure separation agreement. Holness has insisted that the Petrojam board made the right decision given the situation. He argued that emotions had to be removed from the decision-making process and the most economic decision was made in relation to the settlement with Ramharak. National Security Minister Dr. CHANG says the strategic development of the Jamaica Constabulary Force is important to the success of the government's 5-pillar crime plan. Chang says the way forward is to focus on outfitting the force with communications, technology, mobility, physical development, that minimum standard multi-purpose built facilities, human resource development, and proper tools and equipment to improve policing in Jamaica. Speaking at a panel discussion during the University of the West Indies Mona's campus's recent Research Days 2019, the Security Minister noted that a 2018 study indicated a link between station performance relative to attentiveness of police officers and crime outcomes, such as murders and shootings. In addition to bolstering the JCF fleet, the government is also effecting improvements to several police stations, including Balaclava, St. Elizabeth, Dedham Town, Kingston, Savannah Lamar, Westmoreland, and Green Island, Hanover. The People's National Party PNP has condemned the murder of Marjorie Madge Morris, former councillor for the White Horses Division in St. Thomas. Morris was shot dead at her home in Yala, St. Thomas on Sunday. PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips and the entire leadership of the party have expressed shock and sadness by the news. PNP General Secretary Julian Robinson, in a statement, said the news is particularly shocking as the party continues to mourn over the tragic death of their comrade and colleague Dr. Linvale Bloomfield, Member of Parliament for East Portland, who was murdered over a week ago at his home. Lawyer Peter Champagny has taken the case of the family whose baby was stolen from the Victoria Jubilee Hospital in Kingston last month. He is to begin discussions with the management of the facility in relation to redress for the events which led to the abduction. Champagny says he will also be paying close attention to the criminal proceedings against the woman who had the baby. The baby was taken from the hospital by a woman on the morning of January 9. Meanwhile, the woman arrested in connection with the abduction of the day-old baby will be placed on an identification parade today. She reportedly told the cops that the baby was given to her by someone in Spanish Town. Charges are expected to be laid in the case later this week. The woman was arrested last week when she visited the Registrar General's Department in St. Catherine to register the birth of the stolen baby. DNA tests were later conducted, and these confirmed that the baby boy was stolen from Victoria Jubilee. The child was handed over to his parents on Friday. Today is International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and the Ministry of Science and Technology has undertaken a social media campaign to highlight the work of female scientists throughout its divisions and agencies. Chief Research Officer in the Ministry's Planning, Development and Evaluation Division, Zara Oliphant, says the campaign also aims to highlight the many options through which they contribute to national development. She points out that despite the misconception that science is male-oriented, women accounted for 55% of the University of the West Indies science faculty's enrollment up to 2017. Shaggy has added a second Grammy to his name. His collaborative album, 44876, with British rock star Sting, won the award for Best Reggae Album. The announcement was made at the Grammys premiere ceremony at the Microsoft Theatre in Los Angeles yesterday. The other nominees in the category are Reggae Forever by Etana, A Matter of Time, Protege, As the World Turns, Black Uhuru, and Rebellion Rises, Ziggy Marley. This is Shaggy's 6th nomination. He previously won in 1996 for Boombastic. In regional news, we go to Guyana, where Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield says it would be impossible for elections to be held by March 20. Under the Constitution, March 19 is the 90-day mark set after the government lost a no-confidence motion late last year. And it's the date opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo says the polls should be held. But speaking on Friday at a press conference, Lowenfield said based on the current options, a July date would be the most probable date for the elections. And even so, the clock is ticking on that.
It's very simple. For us to conduct an election, it has option 1 or 2, 1 and 2, and 3. Now, the reality is very simple. For us to conduct an election, it has to be staffed. At the moment, if elections are to be held, we will have an estimated amount of 2,300 polling stations or thereabout. Those polling stations has got to be manned by staff. So for anyone to suggest that the Secretariat is moving away, that's the reality. I cannot run an election in part of Guyana. The election is pan-Guyana, Guyana elections, and these staff members got to be trained. One shudders to think if there's going to be a polling station without an attending PO or APU to go there. The decision then will be for someone can very well say, let's close the elections down because GCOM is not ready. We need to understand that fundamental.
In the meantime, opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo says he may agree to an extension of the election date to July if he sees what he terms as good faith measures from David Granger administration. More in this report in HGP Nightly News.
The leader stressed that already there were several cycles of continuous registration.
So there is no concern about leaving young people off the list. Absolutely none. 2, that the list is not clean. Again, the parties went to the local government elections, not a single complaint about that.
The concern of the government-appointed commissioners at GCOM is that the list is bloated and creates scope for electoral fraud. But Mr. Jagdeo feels there could be mechanisms in place to plug loopholes.
Say a person is on the list and has migrated now, okay? that person physically will not be here to vote. If you have strong controls at the polling place, once the presiding officer is there and the polling agents from all the parties, including APNU, is in the polling place, how could someone else vote that is not eligible to vote? And if they have their fingers stained with the ink and every party can see the person's picture ID when they come in, all the parties in the polling place, and the presiding officer doesn't allow that.
On the other hand, while the Secretariat has made proposals to the commissioners relative to timelines, no date has been decided on as yet.
In sports, led by an unbeaten half-century from captain Leon Johnson, top of the table, Guyana Jaguars recorded an easy 7-wicket victory over Jamaican Scorpions on the final day of their 7th-round match in the Regional 4-Day Championships at Guyana National Stadium yesterday. Resuming from their overnight total of 25 without loss in chase of 169 for victory, the Jaguars wrapped up the match after lunch, finishing on 171 for 3. The result stopped a two-game losing streak for the Jaguars, the defending champions, and kept them atop the table. And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Pleasant viewing.